Welcome to Shadowproof. Evidence first, noise last.
Earth, this blue planet, has 71% of its surface area covered by seawater. A conservative estimate puts the total volume of seawater on Earth at approximately 1.35 million cubic kilometers. Some say that our exploration of the ocean is less than 5%. Curiosity and the unknown mysteries of the deep ocean are certainly no less than those of the moon. In 2016, Paul Stonehill and Philip Mantle, based on secret documents from a former Soviet intelligence agency, the KGB, and the Soviet Navy. Russia. Today, we will discuss the fear that comes from the deep sea. When it comes to unidentified flying objects, UFOs, surely everyone here knows about them. However, there is a phenomenon even more mysterious than UFOs that has challenged the military and scientific researchers for decades. However, since such incidents mostly occur in vast sea areas, very few people witness them. So fewer people know about them. The United States and the Soviet Union had significant financial and military resources searching for UFOs over a long period of time, but the results were not as expected. In 1961, during the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States, a Project 627 nuclear-powered attack submarine was on a mission to be honest, Russian intelligence agencies have had enormous financial and military resources. However, the 627 class nuclear attack submarine is still. The 627 class attack nuclear submarine was the first nuclear-powered submarine of the Soviet Navy, and also the first generation of groundbreaking nuclear-powered attack submarine. However, the Soviet Union's rival at the time, NATO, was still unaware of this new technology. This nuclear submarine carries 4 nuclear warheads, with a total destructive power equivalent to. While on a mission, the submarine's sonar system detected 6 unidentified diving objects. They are moving in a triangular formation and are heading towards the ship at a speed of 265 miles per hour. On the submarine, the entire crew were well-trained Soviet Navy personnel. Among them, no one had ever seen a similar object underwater. The submarine commander ordered a reduction in speed. But unexpectedly, at that very moment, the 6 unidentified diving objects also slowed down. The commander urgently summoned the crew and the combat operations. They all believed that the submarine's position had been exposed and could be attacked. The submarine immediately switched to combat readiness. After discussion, the commander decided to have the ship surface and, fortunately, in the urgent situation, they did not launch the nuclear warhead. But as soon as the submarine surfaced, an even more unbelievable event occurred. 6 unidentified diving objects also emerged according. Moreover, they moved quickly and disappeared into the sky. The emergency surfacing of a Soviet nuclear submarine exposed its identity under satellite surveillance. From then on, NATO also learned about the first-generation nuclear attack submarines that the Soviet Union had developed. In September 2009, the Russian government published a document. It was once classified as top secret by the KGB. This document records that strange USO encounter of the Soviet Navy. Some researchers suggest that this unidentified submersible object can move rapidly both underwater and in the air. With the scientific and technological level of humans at that time, it was absolutely therefore, their object could dive underwater as if it could fly in the air. That shows that the ancestors had nothing to build the country with. Lake Baikal ranks 7th in the world by surface area, but with a depth of up to 1,637 meters. It is the deepest, with fresh water accounting for 20% of the total fresh water on Earth. It is no exaggeration to call Lake Baikal the world's water reservoir. The ancients even called Lake Baikal the North Sea. It was formed 25 million years ago. The lake has rich resources, and its shores are frozen. And here, many mysterious phenomena also appear. A secret KGB document described the Soviet Navy's bizarre experience while training near Lake Baikal in 1982. In 1982, under the leadership of Leonid Brezhnev, the Soviet regime had reached the peak of its military power, being the only global power capable of competing with the United States at that time. The Soviet Navy established a military base at Baikal, the deepest fresh, specifically for training Navy divers. That winter, 7 Soviet Navy divers descended with equipment to a depth of about 50 meters. These 7 divers wore thick, heavy diving suits, carried oxygen tanks, and used a special rope to connect themselves together to avoid getting separated. In the deep, dark water, only the diver's moving searchlight beam was visible. At that moment, one diver gestured with hands and feet trying to communicate something to his teammates. The others turned around, and suddenly a dim light shone through, revealing several strange, giant humanoid creatures right in front of them. These humanoid creatures were much taller than normal humans, about 3 meters tall, all wearing a very peculiar type of helmet. The strangest thing was, although they were underwater, they appeared not to use any diving equipment or oxygen at all. All 7 divers were utterly astonished, but unexpectedly, these unidentified diving creatures just stared at them and then immediately vanished at an incredible speed. After the divers surfaced, none could believe what had just happened. Initially, they thought it might be due to the high water pressure causing hallucinations. But even if it were hallucinations, it couldn't be that all 7 experienced the exact same hallucination. Streamers. The Soviet Navy commander was very curious about the matter. Those unidentified underwater creatures could move freely at such high speeds. Therefore, he ordered the 7 divers to go back underwater to capture a specimen. So, the 7 divers, armed with weapons, fishing nets, and diving gear, descended into the lake once more. When they returned to the same spot, they indeed encountered those unidentified creatures again. Just as one of the divers aimed a spear gun to attack the creatures. They felt an extremely powerful, strange force pushing them rapidly to the surface, since they were previously at a depth of 50 meters. Rising to the surface so quickly caused their lungs to expand rapidly, leading to air embolism, commonly known as decompression sickness. 3 divers collapsed on the spot, and the remaining 4 were injured to varying degrees. They were quickly taken to a nearby emergency, but unfortunately, the 3 divers who collapsed died before they could receive treatment. This incident was completely sealed off from the public by the authorities. Since then, many monitoring devices have been installed near the Baikal Lake area. For the military, these unidentified diving objects and underwater creatures likely possess advanced diving technology they could only dream of. If they could replicate this high tech, it would provide unprecedented military advantages. Russia. Which also drew public attention to UFOs. Regarding UFOs, the most famous incident that occurred was the Ferrari event in 1956. One night in August 1956, Orlando Ferrari was night fishing at a spot on the coast in the province of Bilbao, Vizcaya. Just as he was alone enjoying the quiet and beautiful night, he suddenly felt as if a pair of eyes were staring at him from behind. Ferrari turned around and immediately saw a human-like creature, 2 meters tall with pale white skin. Ferrari was terrified, and the human-like creature sadly approached him. At that moment, a voice sounded in Ferrari's head. The human-like creature used telepathy to tell Ferrari not to be afraid and that it wanted to take him to a place. Ferrari's legs seemed not to obey him, and he just followed the human-like creature. In an instant, a vertical flying object skimmed the sea surface, heading towards them, and finally landed right in front of them. As the spaceship door opened, a dazzling light emitted. Ferrari said that in the blink of an eye, he was sunk inside the spaceship. On the spaceship, Ferrari met a girl about over 10 years old. The girl said her name was Elena. Not long ago, she woke up from a dream and just vaguely ended up on the spaceship. Under the direction of these human-like creatures, Ferrari and Elena both had their brains replaced with protected ones. Because bacteria on the human body can harm human-like beings. The spacecraft carried them through the deep sea and surfaced in the Samburumban Sea, Argentina. According to the human-like being's explanation, the purpose was to avoid human detection. Afterward, the spacecraft reached the waters near Africa, from where it flew straight up into the sky and into outer space. Ferrari recounted that while flying in space, he not only saw the entire shape of the Earth and the Moon. Moreover, the human-like beings told Ferrari that they project a force line onto the Earth, and through this line, they can reach Earth in an instant. Ferrari's description of the entire shape of the Earth and the Moon closely resembles what human space probes later observed. This is also one of the reasons why Ferrari's story spread widely. After flying around space for a while, spacecraft returned to Earth, entered the waters of Mexico, and stopped there. Under the guidance of the human-like beings, Ferrari and Elena set out of the spacecraft. They found themselves inside a massive structure, enclosed by a glass dome. Inside that structure, there were also several spacecraft of it. The human-like beings told Ferrari that this was their underwater spacecraft maintenance base. In the base, Ferrari and Elena conducted an experiment together. After drinking an unknown liquid solution, they immediately fell into a deep sleep. When they woke up, they discovered they could understand each other's thoughts. At this point, the human-like beings came and told them that the pineal gland in the human body is always in an inactive state. Humans on Earth are not indigenous to remnants of civilizations from other star systems. And the pineal gland is the most significant characteristic of the primordial race. One day, when it is activated, we can read the thoughts of our peers, considered a form of telepathy. Ferrari's story sounds very mysterious but attracts others. However, after all, this is just an urban legend, without any real evidence. But if Ferrari's story is true, his survival and return prove that these human-like beings had no ill intentions. One can also draw inspiration from the Ferrari incident. The Abyss. Depicting a U.S. nuclear submarine that unfortunately sank to the seabed after an accident. Since this nuclear submarine carried nuclear warheads, the risk was very high, forcing the military to send a rescue team. However, during the rescue operation, they discovered aliens at the seabed with great technological power. The aliens originally intended to use a tsunami to destroy it, but due to the goodwill of the male and female leads, they ultimately changed their plan. Moreover, in a critical moment, they saved the male lead's life by getting them stranded. It's worth noting that director James Cameron has always had a deep passion for the ocean. Besides his directing work, he is also a professional diver. On March 26, 2012, Cameron boarded the Deep Sea Challenger submersible, reached the Mariana Trench at an depth of 10,908 meters, setting the solo diving record at that time. Many people even joked that compared to deep-sea diving, directing is just Cameron's side job. The USO incident sounds very far-fetched and unbelievable. But in reality, it's not entirely without evidence. In 1986, a Japanese diving enthusiast while diving in the waters south of Yonaguni Island accidentally discovered a massive stone structure. The structure is 150 meters long, 40 meters wide, and 30 meters high, with clear artificial traces. Shapes like roads and stairs can be clearly seen. Currently, this entire underwater structure has become a key diving spot at Yonaguni Island, and is called the Yonaguni Monument. However, the cause of this mysterious formation remains highly debated in the scientific community. Some scholars believe it is merely a sophisticated product of nature, formed by seabed rocks eroded over millions of years. In 1996, Professor Masaki Kimura, head of science at the University of Hawaii, led a research team conducting surveys and studying the Yonaguni ruins for 8 years. He believes this structure has flat edges, no fractures around it, evidently an artificial relic. In June 2011, a professional salvage team named Oceanic near the Baltic Sea area accidentally discovered a massive circular object on the seabed using sonar with a diameter of about 60 meters, height about 8 meters, with clear carving marks, unlike shipwrecks, spacecraft, or seabed corals. Conversely, many people immediately associated this image with the Millennium Falcon spacecraft from Star Wars. Driven by curiosity, Oceanic sent diver Lindenberg to the ocean floor to investigate the circular object thoroughly. Lindenberg dived down twice and finally retrieved a sample from the circular object to bring back. Initially, many geologists thought the circular object was volcanic rock, formed from an eruption millions of years ago. However, the test results of the sample surprised the experts. The sample contained large amounts of titanium, iron, and manganese, unlike volcanic rock but more similar in composition to metal. Dating methods showed it has existed for about 140,000 years. While people were still debating the true origin of the circular object, the Oceanic team made a new discovery. They found a very long slide mark on the back of the circular object. The end of this slide mark intersected with another slide mark, and following the second one, they discovered a second circular object. The two circular objects are about 200 meters apart, similar in size, with two slide marks extending in different. Oceanic made a bold inference that this could be debris from some crashed flying object. The two circular objects were originally one, which split into two pieces upon impact and slid in different directions. Coincidentally, the Pacific Sea is where in 1961, the Soviet nuclear attack submarine 627 accidentally encountered six unidentified. In 2014, in the Bellevue Strait, California, USA, more than 6 miles from Puerto coast, an underwater structure with an extremely unusual shape was discovered. This structure is located at a depth of over 600 meters, nearly 4.8 kilometers wide, with a giant oval roof covering it. Under the arched roof are supporting pillars, looking like an entrance to the inside of the dome. The most unbelievable thing is that this seabed structure continuously emits very strong electrical wave. These discoveries about deep-sea structures seem to indicate that the ocean still holds many unsolved mysteries.
If the proof convinced you, subscribe and open the next case.